Welcome to another episode of the Investment Immigration Podcast brought to you by Uglobal. I'm your host, Salman Siddiqui. In this episode, we are going to focus on Australia. Now, Australia's immigration program is expected to have a lot of changes, especially by the end of this year. This comes after the government made some announcements about an overhaul in May, and this concerns mainly with the business innovation and investment program stream that they have there, which is also known as the 188. So in this episode, we're going to talk about these expected changes which are going to come soon. And what does this mean, especially for entrepreneurs, for startup founders? And also we're going to touch on the global talent stream that they have and what does this mean for highly skilled workers who are interested to move to Australia. So to discuss all of this, I have a very special guest. His name is Venkateswaran Palat Krishnan. He is an immigration lawyer who specializes in Australia's immigration program. He also actually does specialization in New Zealand's program. And he's joining us at the moment all the way from India. So welcome to the show, Venkat.
Thank you, Sadiq. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Venkat, if you could explain to our listeners what's going on with the expected changes that we are hearing that's going to come soon in Australia's business and innovation stream. If you could give us a sense of the changes that are expected this year.
Yes, it's a very good question pertaining at the moment because a business innovation visa is one of the very prominent visas for Australia. Every year they used to give at least 5,000 visas. All of a sudden, with the recent reports from the industry, what they had from the experts, had provided them certain insight that this is not working exactly the way they wanted, actually. Although every year there are almost 5,000 visas have been granted. So the government this year, in fact, they could not actually release many visas already on the pipeline. People have already applied and they have not yet granted. And then this year, that's why they reduced it only for 1,900 visas this year in all. It looks like as though it's carried over from the previous year. And this year, all the states have not been allocated any seats at all. That exactly means very clearly that the government is going to totally revamp the whole 188, subclass 188 visa structure. As we know, we have 4 visas in that. And they are definitely going to change in that, especially that may not, for some of these streams in this visa may not be there at all. That's what is the new thinking about. But we do not know exactly what it is, but we are sure it's going to be out and new systems is going to come. That is for sure. That is one thing is sure. It may happen by December or by June. Generally by July, all these new schemes will come. That's a standard procedure in Australia. Whenever they implement them, normally, not necessarily always, but normally they implement in July. So in case they could not implement much before this, they might implement in July. That's what everybody is expecting.
I see. Okay. And if you could explain what this means. So the business innovation and investment program stream, the 188, are we saying that it's going to be a reform or there are changes expected? Or do you think it's going to be straight? This will be like ended and then something new will come in?
We presume that something new will come. They cannot end a total investment there. That may not be the option they are looking at. They might scrap off what exactly the current situation is. They may introduce a brand new one, the new system, new ways of investment. That's what that's going to be there. That's what my presumption is, because 180 has already got 4 streams. When they have not allocated anything, even for the investment visas, they have not allocated any seats this time. So that simply means that they're going to revamp the whole thing. Probably it might be even called a different visa name also, not necessarily 188. That's what I think. According to me, it might be called a different name just to ensure that they are looking at it differently, just to ensure that people do not get confused with the existing old one, because people already applied some of them. So that could be the scenario. That's what I'm thinking for.
Right. And, given these changes that are going to happen in Australia's program, the question then comes in, what will happen to the existing applicants who are applying for the streams right now?
Very good question, because currently there are 2 types of scenarios are there. One is some people who applied only for the EOI and others who have actually applied for the visa. Those who applied for the visa definitely to be processed, no problem with that. However, it can take some time because it's on the queue. They'll be processing according to the queue, those who applied first. So that can take some time, but they need not worry because they've already applied for the visa. On the other hand, those who applied for the EOI, yes, unfortunately, that may not be considered, to be very honest with that, actually. Whatever they applied for EOI, because there's no place allocated now, so they may have to come back and reapply with the EOI, expression of interest, whenever new systems coming or new visas introduced. Currently, even if they apply for EOI, you can still apply. The online procedure is still accepting, but unfortunately, there's no place allocated to the state government. As you know, this 188 visa, the investment visa, is actually state nominated. You need to get a state nomination first. When there's no place allocated to any states, where are you going to be picked up at all? It's not going to happen. So unfortunately, these people who are on the EOI stage may have to reapply, come back again. On the other hand, those already applied, they can have a sense of relief because nothing going to happen with them. Because one thing is that whatever the rules, when they apply, the rate of actual application lodged will be applicable to them. So that way, if they satisfy that one, then you not really worry about it, actually.
Speaking a little bit more of these changes, you touched upon this earlier in your remarks. Why is this coming? I want to understand from you,
Yes,
what was the need to change all of this? Wasn't the system working, or how is it going to improve?
You perfectly nailed the question. That's a real question, actually, because everybody is wondering why it's happening so far. Why should this happen now? All of a sudden, it's going on well. There are 5,000 visas, and people are investing at least up to 5 million, 2.2 to 5 million. It's a very good investment. Why it is not working? But some of the reports have found out that it is not really working. I can tell you an example, just although it's not really good, but I have to tell an example from my own client. This client has got actually 30 million. Seriously, it's very rich. He doesn't need money is not a problem for this client. He's from Nepal, but he could not really, although he got the visa, obviously he'll get the visa. Although he got the visa, he could not really find proper investment there. He's been there for 2 years. He could not really come and do something there. So this is a question with a well-seasoned entrepreneur who has developed 30 million. He's got his own various enterprising businesses in Nepal. Then imagine people with a lesser level of experience who are reasonably new entrepreneurs. Let us assume he's just last few years only he's been an entrepreneur himself, and now he's trying to enter into a new country. And he could not cope up with the requirement because you have only 4 years to complete your basics to become the permanent resident. You're given initially only a temporary resident visa. So two things happen. Either these people could not invest properly during that time, or the chances are lost because the 4 years they have to come back. They cannot do anything else unless they're eligible for some other visa. They will not qualify to become the permanent. It's a really a tricky situation because people do not have so they have not done proper study or they are a little bit wondering how to invest. They do not know. They may have a big culture shock. They have not found out. Initially, now, for example, the investor visa says you invest in particular forum. You invest in this upcoming new enterprises. You invest in the early stage of public limited companies, and then you can invest in well-established companies. That's up to you. You're given the choice. But that being said, how many people are having the knowledge which is the best developing entrepreneur place I can invest, or which is the well-developed? We do not know. Just assume even the case of Indian market. For example, we think that Reliance is a great company, but how far does all the project come under that? When a local person is finding it locally like that, imagine the same person coming all the way to a foreign country and talking about various, these shares. He has to invest in these sort of shares.
Right.
See, even for Indian, in India also, there are so many enterprising entrepreneurs. After all, Mumbai is full of entrepreneurs only. If no entrepreneur, Mumbai will not be there. Actually, that's right. Mumbai. No doubt about it. Yes, they may not be like international, but they are entrepreneurs. They are doing a great job. Mumbai is well known for that. There can be so many tiny and major. These people, in spite of their expertise, what do they know about Wall Street? Just let us assume if they come to Wall Street and they're asked to invest now. on these various shares. Three types of shares. One is you can invest in private companies without coming to share. Then you go for your own, managed investment, managed funds. So now this is a tricky part. I do not know what. In fact, many people do not know what is Wall Street itself. That is the scenario. Imagine these people coming to Australia and do it. So somebody has to handhold them. How many of them can handhold them and get into these investments? Are we having any people, for example, in your EB5, they've got this regional centers to do something. So that has got a now very good forum there, and it has got some sort of. Do Australia have any sort of investors who can, help them to these sort of investments? Not really. That's the problem. So how is it going to work? So it's a good thing that the government actually decided we want investment, but it should be productive and useful to everyone, including the investor himself. So let us do something, different, so that not only the economy boosts, the person who is coming in is also having some benefit out of it. That is exactly the scenario. It's not yielded. For example, you are given 2 years to invest. By the time 3 years have passed, they are unable to find a proper thing to invest. If at all they invest, they have to, because of compulsion to find out something, they invest, and that's not going to, give out these type of results to get that PR. In order to get that PR, they need to have some minimal requirement, although it's not as stiff as your EB5. Still, they have to show that they have a reasonable turnover, and they have employed few people, at least a couple of people, and they have helped certain of this. So obviously, business should have some reasonable progress. That has to be shown. There's a minimum requirement is there. That is not being able to meet, because they have taken a decision 2-3 out of the 4 years, already 2-3 years have spent just looking at where to invest. So that's where the whole issue is coming in practical life.
So, what you described are very serious issues that any entrepreneur from any country who comes to Australia would be facing. And this stream has been there for a while, I'm surprised that took so much time for them to realize that something needs to be changed,
That's a good question you asked, actually. This brings me to within this investment changes, actually, this changes the current existing, what is going to be revamped. But this one, it was only about 5-6 years back it started, actually. Previously, it was there, but in a different way. Let me put it this way. The investor visa, previously, say about before 2015, I don't exactly remember, but I had a client at that time. You need to invest in the government treasury. It's very crystal clear. All you have to do is invest in the government treasury or investment in a particular, whichever is directed by the state government. The state government only provides the direction where to invest. That's all they have to do, except for the innovation stream. Innovation stream, obviously, you have to provide a project. Out of the 4 stream, the direct investment stream, you have to just invest in the treasury. That much matter is sorted out. Only for the innovation stream, you have to tell them that what sort of business you are, and the state government approves, matter solved. Suddenly, after around 2015 or somewhere around that range, they've changed this into various pattern. As I told you, the 2.5 million, you split it into 500,000 into venture capital, another 7.75 million into sort of developing listed companies, but just developing, not at a fully established company. And then in the managed funds, where you can invest in whatever you want. And the company's got a managed fund, you just can be part of that. That can be up to 1.25 million. This is especially after 2021, they further changed it recently. 2021 only they changed it further. Within these 2 years, they found out now it is, they should have been on this for some earlier on, but they became too serious only after these changes they've introduced. In 2021, they further changed it. What is existing today is actually 2021 July, to be very exact date, actually. Before that, they introduced some changes around 2015. There have been a little bit small changes has been happening in periodically, but of late has been drastic. Now, only last few years only they have been sitting on that, and they realize that, yes, it is not working to the level it is expected. Or, for example, they should have at least contributed, let us assume 2 to 3 employment per venture.
Now, moving on, let's also talk about the existing streams that are there right now and are still available to applicants. So if you could talk about that, the current stream that we have for business people, for entrepreneurs. So what they should be applying for right now under these scenario where changes are expected, which stream do you recommend to your clients that, okay, you should go for this one?
Yeah, I think the existing streams, we have 4 streams. We have, generally they call us 188A, that's all. It's not exactly, in the real world, it's not aimed as A, but our own, the local people just to identify, we just say A, B, C, and D, that's all. The 188A is nothing but what they call as innovation visa, which is not necessarily always your product has to be innovative, but that's good. It's actually meant for that, but not necessarily. You may have produced a plan where it is useful for the state, because this visa has to be nominated by a state. So you first have to contact the state and provide a plan. So in that case, if they approve, all you have to have is you should have a asset worth of 1.25 million. That should be your asset. Right. Business asset and personal asset together, you should be willing to transfer 1.25 million into Australia. This was not so much previously. It was somewhere around 800,000 or something like that previously, but then now they changed only in 2021 as 1.25 million. They have to transfer, number one. The other important area they should have is they should have had a turnover. Currently, they should have had a turnover, enjoying a turnover for last 2 years, for each year, about $750,000. Previously, it was only around $500,000. Now it's $750,000.
Right.
They should have a turnover. So they have this one, and also in case they are working currently in a company that has assets of only 400,000, then they should have 51% of their share on that. On the other hand, if it is a huge company beyond 400,000, then they need to have only 10% of the share. So these sort of various ingredients are there. But ultimately, they need to be investing in Australia on a project, their own project. They can either buy an existing one or buy on transferring 1.25 million. That's the main condition. Of course, there are another small conditions. You should be less than 55, and you should also score 65 points. That's another crazy. Apart from investing 1.25 million, you should also score 65 points on various parameters. One of the parameters will be your knowledge of English. You should have at least a functional level of English. Then your age, obviously, above 55 cannot apply. Between age 18 to 55, you'll be given points. And it depends on your turnover. What was your turnover? You'll get points for that. What are your assets? If your number assets are more, you'll get points for that. So your experience also will get some points. So these things add up and give you 65 points. In case your project is well accepted as a special case and they really want it, and it's an important sector in the state government, then you'll get additional points also. So this is the tricky point for the first part. Then we have another 3. Other 3 is what we call 188B. 188B is reasonably straightforward compared to 188A. However, still it has got 65 points. Same parameters, 65 points are there. But you just have to invest a 2.5 million. Currently, it's 2.5 million. Previously, it's 2.25 million. So you should also have some business plan. That's why you're getting 65 points. You don't need a business plan here, because what you're going to do with 2.25 is different from that point A, where you have to show the entire 1.25 million, but invest somewhere. That's up to you. Whereas here, there is a fixed way you have to invest. What you have to do is this 2.5 million, you have to invest $500,000 in any private company. For example, it need not be listed company, any private company, and join any entrepreneur, you can invest. Another about 0.75 million, $750,000, you can invest in a managed funds, a developing company, but that should be listed company. A listed company, but need not be well high funder company, a company which is just coming up. That type of company you can manage. Another set of investment, you have to invest the remaining about 1.25 million. You must invest in what is called the managed funds. Managed funds where many people pool their money in a particular company's project. Company will have its own project and people will be pooling money. You will be one of those investors. That's sort of a managed funds you can have for 1.25. So this is the only requirement for B. C is even more made easy. 788C is actually 5 million. One of the beauty of this 5 million 188C, which is called significant investor, as the name suggests, because significantly you invest more money compared to the earlier one. One of the beauty is no age limit. And no really, you just need to have a functional English, or you can pay some money extra for that. And you don't need to have a business background as well. unlike the previous. So no points. So there's no point test, nothing. All you're doing is, I'm ready to invest this 5 million, that's all. So you are 18 years old plus, irrespective of your age, and you're ready to invest, matters all. So how do you have to invest? Same category like point B, the investment alone is slightly changed. You have to invest about 1 million in the private sector, where you don't have to, you have to invest 1 million there, and you can invest 1.5 million, 1.5 million in the developing sector, and the 2.5 million in the managed funds. I told you managed funds where people pool up their money on a particular project. So there you can invest 2.5 million. So this is the only requirement for them. So you should prove that you're having 5 million accessible money to Australia. Then the interesting one is the last one, D. What is D is the actually entrepreneur visa. It is called 180D. Previously, there was a huge issue with that, because you have to get a sort of an angel investor, which is a government body like a university or a government approved some company, something like that. They have to invest $200,000 in your project.
Right.
That's a bit tricky and not easily possible for a person who started from here to have some sort of a tie-up with such a body and get sort of a thing. Now they reduced it actually in 2021. Very nice. What they said is, you have a project, you give it to the state authority. Each state authority has got a body. They have nominated a body. That body approves your project, fine, that's it. There's no minimum requirement, nothing, except, of course, the only requirement is the age. You still have to be less than 65. And your English is slightly high, like a competent English. That's all. No other requirement. There's not even fixed amount, actually. So if you have a very good project, which is really important to Australia or that particular region, and that particular authority which is assigned that way, they will approve it. That's it. You can straight away have it for 5 years. And if you establish the business in 5 years and you have a minimum, of course, that time some question comes. You should have some minimum turnover. You should have around 600,000 turnover, or you should employ 2 people. There are a few categories you have to maintain. You have to have an assets of around 300,000 or whatever. If you maintain few things, you will be able to get your permanent residence. But entry is a little bit easier, and that's what it is. So this is the 4 parameters we had actually.
Which subcategory under the stream has been more popular, or you've seen more clients from? And what was the reason for that, you think?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because that's where at least my market, my experience there. So because this subcategory 188A is the most popular. Well, the reason is that although it requires some documents, it's quite straightforward, because you need to have only 1.25 million as assets, which is reasonable for any established business people, and you have to give a nice project, that's all. Fortunately, these entrepreneurs will take an expertise of themselves and provide a nice project. That's where the blending comes easily. Whereas they do not have to, speculate which share I'm going to put, what I'm going to do. It's a little bit easier for them. And as long as that project has got some sort of value, for example, I had a client who said he's going to start only an education thing, and the people got excited about education. It's already there in Australia. What are you going to do? But he really proved a point that I'm going to bring you an education, especially after pandemic, where the people are able to cope up with the society. I don't want an education just because I'm going to win. I'm going to have a situation where I want people to interact, and I want people to coordinate, because they've been isolated for a long time. It's time that we get back to do something. And children are molded in such a way. And my education will have this thing, and also provide remedy for others. This is what my education courses are. Accepted by them, and they immediately gave the visa to, actually. That's why this innovation provides an opportunity for people, experienced people, to provide a little bit more, or expand their horizon. So that's 188A has been the most popular. The least popular also, I can say, is 180D only, because the people are unable to provide write-up which is approved by the particular authority. Not many people are able to provide, except 1 or 2 people who have well judged their market and have already developed some market background for them. For example, they already have buyers. This person is developing an IT program, something like that, and he has already got orders, actually. So these are the people who are well researched and well planned are able to succeed in the last part. All others, general entrepreneurs, because you can't blame them. So they have to take a step based on what it is. And the 188A has been much more popular than anybody else. Another reason I have to tell you is that the reason from Asian countries, you are aware, you can't transfer money quickly. Unlike the developed countries, money cannot be transferred.
Right.
Because you say 5 million, now two people cannot suddenly transfer from all the Asian countries, not only India. I'm not blaming India alone, even Nepal, all these countries. You cannot just transfer money, unlike what Australia has also started, although it's in the eastern part, it's like Western country only. All these have different way of transferring money. It's your money you transfer. There's not much of an issue there. Whereas here, there's an issue. Even though it's your money, especially if you're transferring abroad, within local, it may not be an issue. Yes, people buy anything locally. But the moment this cross-border transaction, then there are a lot of limitations and rules and regulations coming in. For example, in India, a person can only transfer $250 US equivalent. So even two people in the family can only about 750,000, whatever maximum they can transfer. So these sort of issues do come. Of course, then they have to include their children. So this happens in the Asian region. So that is where this 1.25 million is more popular, because easy to transfer. They can transfer their expertise already, because they can project a plan what it is. So this is the scenario.
So under these subcategories, is this some streams or the subcategories are more quickly processed than the other, or is it the same and that's not a big factor?
As you rightly point out, there are some issues with regard to documentation, actually. What is the purpose of documentation? I'll tell you an example from my own client scenarios to
Please.
make it easy. For example, I had a client who is from Kerala, is owning rubber estates, rubber. So when he applied for the investor visa, then they checked the due diligence always there in Australia. You have to supply documents. He supplied. And they checked, they found everything is okay. So once you nominate a particular property, you cannot change the property. Unlike many countries in Australia, unfortunately, you cannot change once you nominate. You have to only stick to that. Otherwise, you have to start the process entire, unless your visa officer or somebody is ready to accept, we do not know. But otherwise, you're not. So in this particular case, unfortunately, he is ready to sell that one. But the moment visa officer came, for investor visa, you have to deposit, only then the visa will come. You'll only get a preliminary approval, which is not really just saying, okay, you're going to get visa, that's all. It's not something where the visa is really there. Visa you'll get only if you're really transferring. So they said, okay, you please provide the proof that you have sold this. Unfortunately, what happened here, that the property value changed. Now, when he's trying to sell, due diligence successful, it's all right. But by the time this took about 6 months' time, within 6 months' time, the property value changed. And he is caught in a situation, even if he sells, he will not be able to meet the requirement now. This is where the investor visas get into confusion. Because it's 2.5 million and 3 million, you have already fine-tuned. It's not like $2, it is 2.5 million. So even a rich person would have given some plan to it. How much ever rich he is, they would have given some plan to it. And that nobody keeps in their home. So now you are in a bank. These will be in some investment. So when the investment has to be, shown, and although they will give time, but it is not going to fetch that money. They have to put money elsewhere. This is a tricky issue. That is not the case with 1.25 million, because all they have to do is just bring it there. They're least bothered what it is. So that's a little bit of a difference there. Secondly, 1.2 million is a little bit lesser compared to anyway 2.5 million.
What is happening right now? Do you think the applications are being processed timely manner?
At this time, it's not. It looks like there's a standstill. Currently, there's not much of processing going on. Even two of my clients, they applied last year. Last year, 2 years back, whenever they applied, we used to get them within a year. Even this 188A, we used to get it within 1 year. But now, what happened, this person was applied in last January, even now we are 1.5 years past now, and it's still just lying like that, not much of an action at all. Of course, fortunately, the immigration puts an indicative time in a particular field. You check that, it says 36 months. So it simply says that you cannot worry about anything for another 1.5 years as well. 36 months you have to wait. You're only 18 months over. So wait for another 18 months before we try to do something. That's what it says. So going by that, although it's not always accurate, but more or less prompt. Immigration has been reasonably prompt in whatever the figures they're giving.
I
So
see.
we have to go by that. Not accurate, of course. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more, but that's okay. At least it gives an idea. Unfortunately, that is now showing 36 months.
Venkat, if we could also talk about, this question that always comes regarding Australia is, can I just buy property and just get permanent residency? People who are looking for quick fixes, what do you say to them?
Excellent question. Seriously, it's a very practical question what you're asking, especially those students, their parents want to do this. Many of my clients in the last 8 years pestering me for this, thinking that it's possible. And the answer is unfortunately both yes and no. If you ask, can you buy a personal property and migrate? Impossible. If you buy a property on your own name and you show that as a property, even if you buy it for millions, it's not going to help you at all. Commercial property, sort of yes and no. Personal property, no, straight no. Commercial property alone, yes and no, in the sense, if you straight away buy a commercial property, say, now I'm putting it on lease, so give me migration. No, you're not going to do it. That's similar to a personal property only. You bought a property, you say it's a commercial property, I'm giving on lease. Now, where is my migration? Yeah. But you are an investor, you plan yourself. For example, you go to this EB5, regional centers, I can say what you can do is that you go to the managed funds. So the particular company that managed funds is used to buy some property and they are putting out lease. Out of the many investors who share their funds, managed funds, you are one of those managed funds. That company, if for managing, they invested somewhere. That way you can. It leaves some work actually. So people who are very keen on this should meet a proper 2 consultants, not just the migration lawyer, some investment consultant as well. Only then this can work out. It's possible like this, not directly possible.
I would also like to talk to you about this Global Talent Independent Program of Australia. If you could just briefly mention about who it's targeted for and whether that program is working or not,
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. It actually started only in around 2019, and the last few years only they have been on. They seem to be a little bit happy with that. The government seems to be, because they did not alter it much. In fact, they added more and more explanation to that. And if I initially start off something, now if you go and look into the websites, you will have plenty of explanation on various categories. So it seems to be they're a little bit happy with that. So whom it is targeted? It is not exactly targeted a pure entrepreneur, although entrepreneurial skills also can be there, but it's purely targeted on certain skills. At this point of time, although anybody with international level skill, if you have an international reputation and you have skills which is wide accepted, that is internationally accepted, not just national. So in that case, you will be in a position to actually apply for this, provided you still are in the profession or in that occupation, whatever the international level achievements, you should have international level achievements. And you are nominated by a similar person from Australia who's having the similar achievement. It can be an organization or a person, not necessarily organization. You don't have to get a job also. There's no requirement. All you have to prove that you are internationally reputable and you have international skills, which is required in Australia. So although you have international skills, whether it's required in Australia is one thing. And there should be somebody in Australia, either a body or a person who can endorse this. That's all. That's all is a requirement. So saying that it's not very difficult just because people went to a few countries and gave a seminar. No, not necessarily that becomes like I and you talk here, straight away claim that we are internationally reputed may not be right. We may be internationally skilled. I don't say no. So that's what it is. So we need to have some sort of a profession, but it's possible. So why it is working now is that they really got few good skilled people through that. People who are like leading professors, leading personalities, were able to make a few of them because they are employable, because people at such high level skills who should be in a position to straight away claim minimum of currently $168,000 should be your minimum acceptable salary. That level of salary you're able to attract. The good thing about government did is there's no age limit. There's no English, specific high level of English requirement is also not there. You may not know very good English, but you can still be able internationally renowned person.
And the visa processing time is also shorter for them?
Yes, shorter. How it is done is it's done in the two-way stage like any visa in Australia. You have to lodge an EOI, but the time of lodging EOI itself, you should have the nominator. You can lodge it a little bit later also, but if you do not have it, you will not be picked up at all. So you need to have a nominator. Better to put who is going to be nominated, even if you do not attach the letter, what is going to happen there. So that should be there so that you will be picked up. Otherwise, you will not picked up at all. Once you have that detail, what happens is that currently there are people who got it within 4 to 8 months.
Wow.
Very rarely people are waiting for about 12 months. But we have couple of cases who have only 4 to 8 months, seriously. So you should also establish how you are useful to Australia. So you can be for example, like let us say I'm in India, I'm an international player in Kho or Kabaddi.
Right.
How it's going to help in Australia? It's still international. It's not a...
Right.
It's a great sport in India, actually. It's many people locally, they play that.
Yeah, for the benefit of our listeners who don't understand Kabaddi, Kabaddi is like wrestling, which is done in the mud. It's a very traditional kind of sport, which you don't really see in Australia. But that's a good point, Venkat.
No, see, you can be an excellent sport. You can be like, you say in Kerala, they have calorie fight or something like that. So these are unbelievable skills. True, but what to do? Is it useful to Australia? That's the main point. That's where many people get caught, actually. You are useful to Australia, and that's why they insist that somebody from Australia should give a nomination, either a company or an organization, or at least a person. Even a person, they accept. A person in Australia. Say, like, for example, if I'm at today's cricket day, I can talk about cricket. Suppose I'm a good player of cricket. If Matthew Hayden or somebody in Australia says, yes, he can be taken, yes, sports is accepted today. You should be useful to the country, that's all. Not to Kabaddi, but cricket. If you're useful to the country, no problem.
Venkat, we are coming close to the end of our episode. And in the end, I will give you an opportunity for 30 seconds to make your pitch about Australia and why you think people should continue applying for those business innovation streams and the other streams that we talked about, given the changes that are going to come. So please go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. Australia is a country where it's a most peaceful, laid-back country, as you already know. It's well known for its health system. It's well known for its transparency. It's one of the transparent countries in the world. One of the most livable cities in the world. Australia has got always the most livable cities. So this is one reason you should definitely come and live there. Number two is that Australia provides a huge opportunity in terms of education and health. Because the system itself is livable environment. You have a healthy atmosphere. And it is not as congested as many countries, even countries like India or even US for that matter. Whereas Australia is a little more of a laid-back area, and it provides a lot of opportunity, healthcare system, easy to access education system, various systems are there. And secondly, visa process is also always straightforward. In my 18 years, I never found it can be slightly delayed, but always been straightforward. So that is one reason that you must, it's not confusing at all. They take the time to explain also. So keep the confidence. They're always like that. Welcome to Australia, lucky country.
Thank you so much, Venkat, for making your pitch there. Excellent. And I really appreciate you taking out the time for us and explaining to us in thorough detail about what's happening there in Australia, the changes that are going to come, and so many opportunities there. So I'm really happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
And in the end, I'll just make a shout out to our listeners that please stay tuned to our podcast. We'll be bringing you more guests from around the world. So please stay tuned and thank you.